All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Restorative Injustice, encouraging disorder, suicidal empathy, and weakness for criminals, written by Conrad Riker, available now. Links in description. Men's Rights Book, a cold shower for comfortable lies. The mandatory emotional safety override is the policy. In family court, my video evidenced calm provision is overridden by her testimony that she felt unsafe due to my tone. The institution accepts her subjective feeling as a higher truth than objective reality, replacing logos with pathos. This is the vector away from natural law. The father as logos bearer and protector, whose authority derives from objective order and truth, is subordinated to the mother's subjective caprice. Safety is no longer defined by the absence of physical threat, but by the presence of her emotional discomfort. This inversion creates moral vertigo. I am judged not by my actions, but by her feelings, a reality I cannot control. The ground of justice shifts from objective standards to subjective whim, from natural hierarchy to therapeutic chaos. Men feel this as cultural revolution because the family is the first polity. When the father's role is cicatrized by this policy, the wound of paternal absence is kept open by endless emotional check-ins. Civilization itself hemorrhages stability, and we are left disoriented in a system that has replaced truth with trauma, policy under examination, the mandatory emotional safety override. A procedural rule wherein a father's physical provision and logical discipline are subordinated to the mother's subjective felt safety and trauma narrative, effectively granting the custodial parent veto power over visitation based on unverified emotional distress rather than objective behavioral evidence. Family Court Custody Best Interests Checklist. Inspiration year 1886. Natural Law Origin Point. The natural law anchor is the father as the logos bearer and protector, whose authority is derived from his capacity to provide objective order, safety, and truth. In the natural order, discipline is corrective and proportional. Safety is defined by the absence of physical or tangible threat, not the presence of subjective discomfort. Overall vector size. 8/10 minus the emotional safety override is a satanic inversion that replaces the father's objective authority with the mother's subjective caprice, turning the family from a hierarchy of virtue into a democracy of feelings where the most sensitive voice dictates reality, thereby cauterizing the wound of paternal absence with the scar tissue of bureaucratic control. Vector map policy rule. The mandatory offender empathy expression override, a procedural rule in restorative justice conferencing wherein the victim's felt need for the offender's emotional authenticity is elevated above the objective facts of the crime and the offender's legal accountability. The offender is required to demonstrate genuine remorse and empathic attunement as defined by the facilitator, typically a state-licensed therapist or social worker, with failure to perform emotional vulnerability resulting in harsher sentencing or extended probation, while the victim's anger, desire for retribution, or demand for factual admission of guilt is pathologized as unhealed trauma requiring further therapy. Inspiration year 2012. Institution Restorative Justice Council, UK. Best practice guidelines for victim offender mediation, ideological source. Therapeutic governance, epistemology, postmodern epistemology, feminist care, ethics, natural law origin. The natural law anchor is the logos bearer as the one who speaks truth, judges rightly, and restores order through proportional justice. In the natural order, justice is objective, crime is a violation of law, and restoration requires the offender to accept punishment, make restitution, and be reconciled to the community through the authority of the magistrate, not through the performance of emotional labor for the victim. The victim's dignity is protected by the state's impartial enforcement of law, not by the victim's power to extract psychic submission from the offender. Overall vector size, 9 overall verdict. This policy is a satanic inversion that replaces the objective order of justice with a therapeutic theater of emotional extraction, where the offender must perform vulnerability for a state-appointed empress, the facilitator, and the victim is trained to become a narcissistic consumer of apologies, thereby turning the courtroom into a confessional without absolution and the offender into an emotional serf rather than a moral agent. Inversion vectors. Vector 1, the empathy mandate natural law anchor, justice as proportional retribution and restoration of objective order movement type, speech into harm dialectic mechanism. Concept creep of remorse fallacy, appeal to emotion, ad passiones, vice or sin, pride. The victim's emotional state becomes the standard of truth. Vector size, 9 institutional effect. In conferencing, an offender who calmly admits guilt and offers restitution but does not cry or display emotional vulnerability is deemed unremorseful and receives a harsher sentence, while a glib offender who performs tears and self-pity receives leniency. The objective facts of the crime are subordinated to the victim's perception of the offender's heart. Path home, restore the legal definition of remorse as a verbal admission of guilt and a willingness to accept punishment, not a theatrical display of emotion. Require that sentencing be based on the severity of the crime and the offender's legal record, not on a therapist's assessment of authentic empathy. Vector 2, the victim identity entitlement natural law anchor, the victim's right to justice, not to emotional domination movement type, ersatz replacement dialectic mechanism, victim identity industrial complex fallacy. Special pleading, the victim's feelings are exempt from scrutiny, vice or sin, wrath disguised as healing. The victim is permitted to demand psychic punishment. Vector size, 8 institutional effect. The victim is told that their healing journey requires the offender to truly understand their pain. This gives the victim veto power over the offender's release or rehabilitation, as the victim can always claim the offender's apology was insufficiently genuine. The victim becomes a permanent prosecutor of the offender's soul. Path home, separate the victim's emotional healing from the offender's legal accountability. Provide victims with independent counseling, not with power over the offender's sentence. Restore the state's role as the impartial arbiter of justice. Vector 3, the therapeutic capture of forgiveness natural law anchor. Forgiveness as a free gift, not a coerced transaction movement type. Problem reaction solution dialectic mechanism. State-mediated reconciliation fallacy. False dilemma, either the offender performs empathy or there is no closure, vice or sin, sloth, avoiding the hard work of just punishment by substituting emotional theater, vector size, 8 institutional effect. The policy creates a bureaucratic machinery of restorative circles and empathy workshops that keep both victim and offender in a state of perpetual emotional processing, preventing the finality of a just sentence. The offender is never truly absolved, because the victim's emotional satisfaction is an ever-receding horizon. Path home, restore the legal concept of finality. Once the offender has served the sentence and paid restitution, the debt to society is paid. Forgiveness is a private virtue, not a state-coerced performance. Close the therapeutic loop with a judicial declaration of completion. Vector 4, the feminization of justice natural law anchor. Justice as masculine authority. The judge as logos bearer movement type. Concept creep dialectic mechanism. Marginalization of retributive justice fallacy. Genetic fallacy retribution is primitive and therefore inferior, vice or sin. Envy of male authority projected as compassion. Vector size 9 institutional effect. The traditional judge, who pronounces sentence based on law and evidence, is replaced by a facilitator who mediates emotional exchanges. The goal shifts from did the offender break the law to does the victim feel heard? The masculine principle of objective judgment is supplanted by the feminine principle of relational harmony, turning justice into a therapy session. Path home. Re-establish the primacy of the judge as the representative of the logos, who declares guilt or innocence based on evidence, not emotion. Restrict restorative justice to minor offenses and post-sentencing reconciliation, never as a substitute for trial and punishment. Natural Law Essay 1. The rule that entered the institution: a man has committed a crime. He stands before a tribunal. He admits his guilt. He is prepared to accept the punishment, a fine prison, the lash of proportional justice. He is calm, stoic, ready to pay the debt he owes to the law and to the community. The court stops him. The judge defers to a facilitator, a state-licensed therapist. The question is no longer, did you break the law, and what is the just penalty? The question is now, do you feel the victim's pain? Will you perform your remorse in a way that satisfies her emotional needs? This is the mandatory offender empathy expression override. It is a procedural rule in restorative justice conferencing where the victim's felt need for the offender's emotional authenticity is elevated above the objective facts of the crime and the offender's legal accountability. The offender must demonstrate genuine remorse and empathic attunement as judged by the facilitator. Failure to weep, to grovel, to perform vulnerability results in harsher sentencing or extended probation. The victim's anger, her desire for retribution, her demand for a factual admission of guilt are pathologized as unhealed trauma requiring more therapy. The institution has replaced the courtroom with a confessional, the judge with a therapist, and the law with a feeling. 2. The natural law origin point. What is justice by natural law? The logos bearer, the judge, the king, the father, declares the law from objective reality. A crime is a rupture in the order of being. It is a violation of the natural law written on every heart, a rent in the fabric of the cosmos. Justice has 3 parts. First, truth. Did the man do the deed? Evidence must speak. Second, proportionality. What is the just punishment? The sword must balance the scale. Third, restoration. The debt is paid, the public order is restored, the man is corrected or removed. The victim's dignity comes from the state enforcing the law impartially. The victim does not need to forgive. The victim does not need to feel better. The victim needs to know that the law stands, that the logos has not been broken. Forgiveness is a private, supernatural gift of the will, an icon of the Trinity's mercy. It is not a state-mandated transaction. In the masculine order, the judge is a father. His authority is derived from his capacity to provide objective order, safety, and truth. Discipline is corrective and proportional. Safety is defined by the absence of physical or tangible threat, not the presence of subjective discomfort. This is the foundation of Western civilization. This is the ordering of the soul. 3. The inversion vectors. This policy inverts every anchor of natural justice. Vector 1, the empathy mandate, speech into harm. The natural law anchor is justice as proportional retribution and restoration of objective order. The inversion replaces it with an appeal to emotion. The offender's calm admission of guilt, a virtue of fortitude, is recoded as cold and unremorseful. The glib, weeping narcissist who performs vulnerability receives leniency. The objective facts of the crime are subordinated to the victim's perception of the offender's heart. Truth is replaced by felt truth. This is pride. The victim's emotional state becomes the standard of reality. Vector 2, the victim identity entitlement. The natural law anchor is the victim's right to justice, not to emotional domination. The inversion gives the victim veto power over the offender's release. He didn't seem truly sorry. This is a blank check for eternal punishment based on subjective feeling. The victim becomes a permanent prosecutor of the offender's soul. This is wrath disguised as healing, a special pleading where the victim's feelings are exempt from scrutiny. Vector 3. The therapeutic capture of forgiveness. The natural law anchor is forgiveness as a free gift, not a coerced transaction. The inversion creates a state-mediated reconciliation where forgiveness is bureaucratized. The policy keeps both victim and offender in a state of perpetual emotional processing. Empathy workshops, restorative circles, preventing the finality of a just sentence. The offender is never truly absolved because the victim's emotional satisfaction is an ever-receding horizon. This is sloth, avoiding the hard work of just punishment by substituting emotional theater. Vector 4. The feminization of justice. The natural law anchor is justice as masculine authority, the judge as logos bearer. The inversion replaces the judge with a facilitator who mediates emotional exchanges. The goal shifts from did the offender break the law to does the victim feel heard. The masculine principle of objective judgment is supplanted by the feminine principle of relational harmony. This is envy of male authority projected as compassion, a genetic fallacy claiming retribution is primitive and therefore inferior. 4. The fallacies and vices that powered the fall. This is not a mistake. It is a systematic descent into sin, pride. The victim's feeling is elevated above the logos. My pain is the measure of the world. This is the original sin of Lucifer, the elevation of the self above the order of being. Ressentiment, Nietzsche's insight. A deep envy of the strong, the stoic, the man who can bear punishment without weeping. The system demands that the strong grovel to prove they are weak. It cannot tolerate a man who can say, I am guilty, I am ready to pay. This punishes virtue, fortitude, and rewards vice, performative emotionalism. Sloth, acedia, the hard work of justice, gathering evidence, applying the law, administering proportionate punishment, is abandoned for the easy emotional con of a healing circle. It is easier to feel than to think. It is easier to facilitate a cry than to judge a man. Sentimentality, the vice of the modern era, the elevation of emotion over reason, the refusal to see the world as it is, the demand that the world conform to one's feelings. This is the root of the entire therapeutic state. Logical fallacies. Ad passiones, emotion proves the case. Special pleading. The victim's feelings are the only relevant evidence. False dilemma. Either the offender performs empathy or there is no closure. Genetic fallacy, retribution is primitive, so it is inferior. 5. The cultural revolution, ratchet. How did we get here? One step at a time, each a dialectical inversion. Step 1. Resent the judge. The masculine, objective, hierarchical law is declared oppressive and patriarchal. Step 2. Pathologize the manly. Stoicism is labeled coldness and toxic masculinity. Male virtue becomes a clinical symptom. Step 3. Redefine harm. Expand harm from physical damage to emotional distress. Feeling bad is a crime. Step 4. Install the therapist. Give the therapeutic class the keys to the courthouse. They are the new priests of the emotional state. Step 5. Replace accountability with compliance. Did you do the crime? Irrelevant. Are you compliant with the therapeutic process? Relevant. Step 6. Entitle the victim. Give the victim power over the sentence. The state abdicates its duty to the grievance of the individual. Step 7. Bureaucratize forgiveness. Mandate the performance of forgiveness. Make it a legal transaction. Step 8. Break the man. Reduce the male offender to a state of emotional supplication. If he is innocent, he must lie. If he is guilty but honorable, he is punished for his honor. Each step is a ratchet. You cannot go back. The therapist will not give up her power. The victim will not give up her veto. The inversion is complete. 6. The human and civilizational cost for the offender, the man. He learns that honesty is punished. He learns that performance is rewarded. He is trained in vice. The stoic, the virtuous, the Spartan man who can endure punishment is driven out. The weeping manipulator thrives. The system selects for psychopathy and self-pity. For the victim, the woman, the child, she is taught to see herself as a permanent wound. Her identity is her grievance. She learns that power comes not from virtue or justice, but from the performance of victimhood. She becomes a tyrant of the psyche, addicted to the emotional extraction from the offender. She never has to get better. The system feeds her trauma. For the state is no longer a father, patriarch. It is a mother who demands everyone get along in the nursery. It cannot protect. It cannot punish. It can only facilitate feelings. This is a weak state, a declining state, a state that cannot defend itself because it has forgotten the logic of the sword. For civilization, justice is the bedrock of the polis. When justice is destroyed, trust is destroyed. Men withdraw from a system that hates them. Women are left with a state that indulges their worst impulses. The West, which built its cathedrals and empires on the logos, is reduced to a therapy circle debating feelings while the barbarians are at the gate. We are keeping the wound of crime open with therapeutic needles, preventing the natural healing of justice. 7. The way home return is possible. It requires grace and will. 1. Restore the logos in the law. The judge must be a father again. Law is objective. It rests on natural law and divine revelation. Truth is not a matter of consensus. It is a matter of reality. 2. Define harm objectively. Harm is a broken bone, a stolen purse, a sexual assault. Harm is not, I felt unheard at the mediation conference. Separate the hard law from the soft language. 3. Separate the powers. The state prosecutes the crime. The victim testifies to the facts. The therapeutic class is barred from the sentencing phase. Justice is the work of the magistrate. 4. Restore proportional punishment. A guilty man must be punished. The punishment is the restoration of the order. The offender's feelings are irrelevant to the sentencing. His duty is to accept the just penalty with fortitude. 5. Decouple forgiveness from the state. Forgiveness is a private, sacramental, or familial gift. It is the work of the church, the family, the individual soul. It cannot be coerced by a bureaucrat. Let the courts close the case. Let the heart decide for itself in private. 6. Reclaim fortitude. Teach men again that the highest virtue is to face the consequences of one's actions without whimpering. The man who can say, I did this, I will pay. I am sorry in the sense that I accept the truth of my guilt is hallowed. The weeping of the guilty is a private comfort, not a public performance. 7. Cap. The therapeutic state. Restorative justice has its place. A fence broken between neighbors, a petty theft among friends. It is never a substitute for the law. It is a servant of the law, not its master. Reject the therapist's price. The final syllogism, major premise. True justice is the expression of the logos, proportional, objective, and restoring the order of nature and grace. Minor premise. The mandatory empathy override replaces objective truth with subjective emotion, proportional punishment with emotional performance, and restoration with perpetual therapeutic extraction. Conclusion. Therefore, this policy is not a reform, it is a revolution. It is the enthronement of the victim as a tyrant, the judge as a therapist, and the offender as an emotional serf. It is a satanic inversion of the first principle of civil society. Burn it. Rebuild the throne of the Father. Let the logos judge again. Let the sword be sharp. Let the heart be free. Return to the hard, true, beautiful, and masculine order of the real. Restoration path. Restoration, the path's home. 1. Definitions. The trivium offensive language is the first battlefield. The enemy has hollowed out every crucial word: safety, harm, trauma, restoration, filling the empty space with subjective hysteria and bureaucratic poison. You must take the dictionary back. Safety is the objective absence of physical threat, not the subjective absence of discomfort. Harm is material damage, not a bruised ego or an inconvenient counter-argument. Discipline derives from disciplina, teaching and formation, not pharmaceutical sedation. Stop speaking the enemy's pidgin English. Refuse to concede the grammatical premises of their suicide cult. 2. Due process, the shield of the innocent man. The therapeutic state operates on the assumption that accusation equals guilt, provided the accuser holds the correct victimological credentials. This ends now. Due process is not a loophole for abusers. It is the only barrier between civilization and the mob. We must mandate presumptive 50-50 child custody, tearing the children of divorce from the grasping hands of family court bureaucrats. Require empirical, cross-examined evidence for every claim of emotional abuse. False accusations must be prosecuted with the exact ferocity of the crimes they mimic. Burn the believe all women irrationality to the ground and salt the earth. 3. Fatherhood, the throne of the logos. The father is not an accessory, a babysitter, or a visiting uncle. He is the logos bearer of the household. He imparts order, boundaries, and objective reality to the raw material of childhood. His authority is directly proportional to his sacrifice. To restore the West, men must reclaim their thrones without apology. Rule your household under God. Say no, and let your no be an unbreakable law. Do not ask your children for their consensus, form their character. The state can only usurp the family when the father abdicates his scepter. 4. Family. The first polity. The family is the foundational sovereign state, existing prior to and above the secular government. The unholy trinity of feminism, cultural Marxism, and therapeutic governance seeks to reduce the family to a collection of atomized, state-sanctioned individuals. You must rebuild the family as an indestructible fortress. Subsidiarity is the law. The family absorbs and handles its own disputes, educates its own young, and cares for its own elderly. Marriage is an indissoluble covenant, not a cohabitation contract easily voided by no-fault divorce courts. The household is a sacramental kingdom, not a democracy of feelings. 5. Education. The foundry of souls, the public school is a decaying, hollowed-out gulag, designed to pathologize male energy and manufacture compliant, illiterate NPCs. Boys are not defective girls. They are builders, conquerors, and protectors who require risk, competition, and rigid hierarchy. Pull your sons from the indoctrination centers. Institute classical education or rigorous homeschooling. Feed them the canon, Homer, Plato, Augustine, Aquinas. Force them into martial arts, woodworking, and physical labor. Replace the HR language of inclusion with the ancient rigor of the apprenticeship. 6. Virtue, the architecture of the soul. The left frames morality as a purely external mechanism of oppression, equating vice with liberation. This is a demonic inversion. Virtue is not niceness, it is the habituated power to do good. The cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, are the load-bearing pillars of the masculine soul. Without them, a man is merely a beast driven by appetites. Flee the modern vices, the screen sedation, the pornographic emasculation, the sloth of the gig economy. Cultivate magnanimity. A man who cannot command his own passions is a slave, unfit to command anything else. 7. Logic and reason. The exorcisms of nonsense. We are ruled by ideologues who insist that A is simultaneously non-A, depending on how marginalized they feel. Postmodernism is intellectual syphilis. You must arm yourself with classical logic and become a ruthless dialectician. Force the leftists to define their terms. When they scream equity, ask if it requires lowering the standard or raising the individual. Expose their unfalsifiable tautologies. When they retreat to lived experience as ultimate truth, remind them that reality exists independent of their narcissistic delusions. Destroy their arguments syllogism by syllogism, leaving their irrationality bare and humiliated. 8. Fate. The ultimate ground materialism is a void. It produces nothing but consumerism, suicide, and despair. The universe is not a random dead machine. It is a self-processing linguistic reality spoken into existence by the Logos. Christ is the king of the cosmos, not a therapeutic life coach. To fight the satanic hydra of modernity, you must put on the armor of God. Return to the ancient apostolic traditions, orthodoxy or traditional Catholicism. Partake of the sacraments. The Eucharist is the objective reality of God, the ultimate defiance against a decaying physicalist world. 9. Local institutions, the decentralized kingdom, the globalist megastate thrives on your isolation and dependence. The path home requires building parallel, local structures of pure masculine competence. Rebuild the fraternal orders, the parish councils, and the trade guilds. Form private security networks. Local mutual aid and underground economies if necessary. Real power is local. The man who belongs only to the state is a tax slave. The man who belongs to a brotherhood is a threat to the empire. Starve the federal beast by building functional, self-reliant communities. 10. This blinded self-comment. The final citadel: you cannot save the West if you are a degenerate, weak, and undisciplined coward. The hollowed-out man, emptied of purpose and virtue, is easily filled by the state's poison. Your body and your mind are the final citadels. Train your physical form until it is a weapon. Sharpen your intellect until it is a surgical blade. Take on burdens. Suffer willingly for a higher purpose, and embrace the glorious burden of masculine duty. You are the wall. You are the gate. Rebuild the hierarchy within your own soul, and watch how quickly the external world bends to the gravity of your unyielding will. Cultural revolution ratchet: redefine safety, expand the legal definition of harm to include emotional discomfort and triggering, making the subjective state of the mother the primary legal standard. Bureaucratize emotion. Introduce trauma assessments as mandatory in custody cases, giving psychologists, often aligned with feminist ideology, veto power over fathers. Incentivize victimhood. Create financial and legal advantages for the parent who claims the most emotional distress, encouraging the fabrication or exaggeration of trauma. Pathologize fatherhood. Label traditional paternal traits, stoicism, discipline, authority, as toxic or oppressive in court filings and expert testimony. Replace truth with narrative. Allow lived experience to override video evidence and witness testimony in custody hearings, making the mother's narrative the dominant reality. Cauterize dissent. Pun fathers who challenge the emotional safety narrative with contempt of court or loss of custody, creating a chilling effect on paternal advocacy. Institutionalize dependency. Keep the family in a state of perpetual healing by requiring ongoing therapy and court reviews, preventing the natural closure of the divorce process. Erase the father's role. Replace the father's role as protector with visitor, reducing him to a source of entertainment rather than authority and order. Ways home. Restore objective standards. Legislate that safety must be defined by objective, measurable criteria, e.g., physical presence, lack of violence, not subjective feeling. Re-establish paternal authority. Grant fathers presumptive equal custody unless there is evidence of actual harm, physical, financial, or emotional abuse proven by evidence. Limit therapeutic overreach. Restrict the power of psychologists and social workers to override parental decisions, returning authority to the parents. Incentivize truth. Create legal penalties for false claims of emotional harm, discouraging the weaponization of trauma. Reclaim the language. Restore the meaning of discipline as correction and safety as protection, stripping them of their therapeutic subjective connotations. Restore the family as a hierarchy. Recognize the father as the head of the household, with the mother as the helper and the child as the dependent, rather than a democracy of equals. Encourage natural closure. Limit the duration of custody disputes and therapy requirements, allowing families to heal and move on, rather than remaining in a state of perpetual crisis. Educate for virtue. Teach children that their feelings are important, but not authoritative, and that truth is found in reality, not in their subjective experience. I have shown you the hinge upon which the catastrophe turns. The origin is not mysterious. A civilization that once measured truth against the logos, against being itself, against the objective grammar of reality inscribed in nature and in the soul of man, substituted the supreme tribunal of feeling. Not feeling as the ancients understood the passions, those movements of the sensitive soul to be ordered by reason and trained toward virtue, but feeling as oracle, as unimpeachable testimony, as a Gnostic inner light available exclusively to those who claim to suffer. The mother who declares she feels unsafe in the presence of a calm, law-abiding father has not been violated. She has been handed a weapon by a system that heretically equates subjective distress with objective harm. This is the epistemological rebellion at the foundation. The creature's interior weather report promoted to cosmic law, the spoken word of the father demoted to a negotiable opinion contingent upon the mother's mood. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. But in the family court of the therapeutic state, in the beginning was the feeling, and the feeling was with the grievance industry, and the feeling was God. That is the first cell of the cancer, and from it every metastasis follows. Measure the evil precisely, because precision is a masculine virtue, and sloppiness serves the inversion. The evil is not abstract. It is your neighbor's son who sits in a classroom where his restlessness is labeled a disorder and his competition is called oppression, who comes home to a house where his father has been reduced by judicial decree to a visitor and a check, who opens a screen and finds a world telling him his masculinity is either a punchline or a pathology, who reaches the age of 18 possessing no trade, no mentor, no rite of passage, no sense that he was made for anything but consumption and apology, and who one evening takes his own life because no one ever told him he was created in the image of a king who bears the logos into a world that would crucify it. That is the evil. It is legible. It is countable. Every psychiatrist's prescription pad, every custody evaluator's report, every school's suspension of a boy who needed a forest and received a diagnosis, every father who fell asleep in his car outside the apartment where his children live with a stranger's new boyfriend. These are not tragedies. They are sacrifices on the altar of an anti-order that hates the father because the father images the pattern of all reality, source, principle, generative command. Love that disciplines because it wills the good of the other rather than the comfort of the self. The inversion has been systematic, deliberate, and financed. It has the fingerprints of every ideologue who ever looked at a stable household and saw a prison, every bureaucrat who ever looked at a father's authority and saw a threat to jurisdiction, every theorist who ever needed the family broken so the state could play savior. They replaced the father's objective order with the mother's subjective caprice, called it justice, and charged you for the damage. Here is one act of return, and it does not require a revolution. It requires a man. Tonight, take your son or your nephew, your younger brother, the boy on your block who has no father present, and place a tool in his hand. A real tool, a hammer, a chisel, a fishing line, a rifle, a kitchen knife. Teach him that it has a purpose, that the purpose is good, that his hands were made to shape matter according to an intelligible design. And that design comes from a logos that wrote the world like a sentence with grammar he can learn. Correct him when he holds it wrong. Praise him when he holds it right. Do not ask him how he feels about the task. Ask him whether the task is done and done well. In that single evening, you will have restored more natural order than 1,000 policy papers ever could, because you will have enacted the primordial masculine grammar, intellect commanding, hands obeying, matter formed, truth verified by the object made. The institutions will not save you. They are occupied by the inversion. But the household, the workshop, the field, the church, the pew, where a father kneels beside his son and whispers the words that rebels cannot legislate away, these remain. Rebuild from the stone the machine cannot reach. The Father's house has many rooms, and the first one you reclaim is your own. Sponsored book, Restorative Injustice, Encouraging Disorder, Suicidal Empathy, and Weakness for Criminals. I spent 10 years teaching high school in a district that prided itself on being progressive. I watched as test scores fell. Classrooms descended into chaos, and teachers, especially men, were silenced, mocked, or fired for enforcing basic rules. I was told to stop dominating the room, to stop projecting toxic masculinity, just for demanding students sit down, shut up, and learn. I was forced to sit through training where I was told that suspending a violent student was reproducing systemic oppression, while the kid who punched another boy in the face was sent to a healing circle to talk about his feelings. I saw firsthand how restorative justice wasn't about justice at all. It was about control, ideology, and the systematic dismantling of male authority. I left the profession not because I failed, but because the system had already failed. Failed the students, failed the teachers, and especially failed men. This book is for men who are tired of being told they're the problem, tired of being blamed for every social ill, while real issues, broken families, emotional immaturity, ideological indoctrination, are swept under the rug. It's for men who understand that strength isn't the enemy and that accountability isn't oppression. If you're a father, a teacher, a coach, or just a man trying to survive in a world that treats you like a second-class citizen unless you bow to feminist ideology, this book is your weapon. It's not soft. It's not balanced for the sake of political correctness. It's raw, it's real, and it's based on facts, not feelings. I've studied the data, dissected the studies, and exposed the lies behind the claims that restorative justice reduces violence or improves equity. The truth, it does neither. It increases disorder, rewards bad behavior, and destroys merit. And worst of all, it's sold to us as compassion when it's really cowardice. If you're a woman who believes men need to be fixed, or a progressive who thinks empathy trumps consequences, do yourself a favor. Close this book now, put it down. Go read something that strokes your ego, like a self-help guide on how to lean in or a memoir about overcoming microaggressions. This book isn't for you. It's for men who are done apologizing for being strong, for being logical, for wanting order instead of chaos. It's for men who see through the lies of the school-to-prison pipeline myth, who know that zero tolerance wasn't the problem, lack of discipline was, and who understand that replacing punishment with talk therapy doesn't heal kids, it enables them. Inside, you'll learn how restorative justice became a Trojan horse for Marxist ideology in schools. You'll see how concepts like Ubuntu, a real African philosophy, were hijacked and twisted into tools for collectivist control. You'll discover how data is faked, how suspension rates are manipulated, and how teachers are bullied into silence. You'll understand why masculinity isn't toxic, it's targeted. And you'll get the truth about how the feminization of authority has turned classrooms into emotional playgrounds where rules don't matter and strength is punished. This isn't theory. It's what's happening right now in real schools to real men. And if we don't push back, Western civilization as we know it will collapse under the weight of its own suicidal empathy. You'll walk away with more than anger. You'll have clarity. You'll have evidence. You'll have arguments that cut through the noise. And most importantly, you'll have the confidence to stand up, speak out, and reclaim your role as a leader, a protector, and a man. This book is not optional, it's urgent. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed to weaken men and empower ideologues. If you're ready to wake up, to fight back, and to restore real justice, then keep reading. Everything you've been told about fairness, healing, and equality is a lie. It's time to see the truth. Restorative Injustice, Encouraging Disorder, Suicidal Empathy, and Weakness for Criminals, written by Conrad Reicher. Buy now, links in description.